Hello. Well, thanks for staying. Obviously, you guys weren't interested in fluid dynamics with Matt Svoboda. So, guys from Notch have asked me to chat about AR. But firstly, a little bit of background. So, I run Bild Studios, three of us, myself, David, and Rowan down the front row here. Our tagline kind of describes what we do, a lot of everything in the world of video. This time last year, I think it was, me and David were out in Korea, and this whole concept of AR and broadcast and where it was going, building on a demo David had done a few years ago, we started chatting about AR, and that's kind of led me to 12 months on standing here talking about AR. Little quick demo of Bild. So yeah, so that's a little snippet of what we've been up to. And you can see, very notch heavy, as you can imagine, with a lot of those looks. So who am I? Engineer by trade, studied that years ago. Started in this industry working for Projection Artworks many, many moons ago. Left Projection Artworks, went freelance, and in my trip around the freelance world, bumped into David and Rowan, and we founded Bild Studios. I love broadcast and AR. This is me last year, full of excitement. So, first question for AR. What is it? What is VR? What is AR? What is MR? What is XR? What is reality that we live in? Lots of words have been bandied around. So just to quickly, VR kind of came back into its realm when Palmer Luckey, at whatever age he was, 22 years old, invented the Oculus Rift. It's obviously gone a bit crazy since then, everything from cardboard boxes with phones in them to the Vive to all kinds of crazy stuff. So VR, the term is generally used when you're fully encapsulated inside a helmet. The entire vision is virtual. There is no real reality in it. Obviously, things like the void, you have guns and objects, but essentially everything is virtual. Augmented reality, or AR, it's been around for a long time. We've all seen it on TV, in sports broadcasts. Prime example, the NFL, obviously one of the first ones to use it. Taking a video feed, reality, augmenting it with virtual graphics. So the next stage is then mixed reality. So mixed reality generally is accepted as being a term where you take the real world through a video camera or through your eyes and you augment it, but you can react to it, you can interact with it. And that's kind of what generally is the term mixed reality is. So AR, as the title says, is probably not technically true because a lot of the stuff we're doing is mixed in it. And then AR, extended reality, has been given this umbrella term to cover everything. So, a list. So just a few little teasers there of kind of the bits and pieces that we'll talk about. So what's driving, I'm going to call it AR, just because that's the term we're using. What's driving it? Why have I spent the last 12 months looking into it? So mobile phones and Pokemon Go, obviously the classic augmented reality example. All of a sudden, everyone from your TV producers, your film producers, everyone in the audience, the power we have in these devices is immense. And people are seeing what's happening in these iPhones, and they're starting to say, well, can we do this elsewhere? Where else can we do this? So again, the iPad, people are starting to look at industrial uses for AR, where you can help engineers explain things. People are trying to sell things with AR. And then you get into TV and broadcast world. So Strictly Come Dancing, obviously, this has been running for 10 years now. And essentially, they've been projecting on the floor, doing some lighting effects, and that's it, really. That's all they've been doing. So because of those other concepts, the AR, the games, and bits and pieces, TV producers, film producers are asking the question, well, how can we bring that into our world? And that's essentially what we've been working on trying to develop for the last 12 months. So what's required for AR? There's kind of three very basics, the top three. Camera tracking, a real-time engine, obviously, Notch, and a server to play it back through, to manage everything. Then two optionals at the bottom there, object tracking and video services. And I'll go into why they're optional and what can be done with them in a bit. So camera tracking. The augmented reality, if you want to put a virtual world on top of a real world, you have to kind of know what the person is seeing if it's virtual reality, so you track a headset. In augmented reality, everything we do is over. We can't track every single person's eyes in his room at once and put augmented graphics in front of me. We can, however, track a single camera and overlay graphics on top of it. So camera tracking is key. You could have a fixed camera, but you're still going to have to work out where that camera position is. A couple of systems. Stipe, young guys over in Croatia who really have been driving very affordable, very easy to use camera systems, predominantly what we've been using for the last year. Moses, UK company, doing a very, very similar project. NCAM's very different to Stipe and Moses. So Stipe and Moses, they use a series of dots in the roof or on the floor, they can be on the stage. But essentially it's a bunch of dots. There's a camera looking at those dots. You've built a map during your calibration process, and the camera then knows where it is. The NCAM system is different in that the NCAM system is visual, so it looks at what is going on in the room, so it's optical tracking, essentially. The reason we've kind of been going down the Stipe and the Moses route is the NCAM system, very, very good in a TV environment, static lighting, very, very even lighting in a room. In our live events environment, we have flashing lights and beams and all kinds of crazy things going on. So optical tracking isn't as useful. They definitely both have their uses. So you can see here, this is the Red Spy Fiber Kit. They've made a lovely, very clean system now. So the little box on top is a camera, and it's pointing up, looking at the dots in the previous slide. So obviously, you've now got your camera position, and you've built your world. You need a real-time engine, and that's where Notch has come into this process. And the process doesn't work without a real-time engine. You cannot pre-render AR graphics. So you can't pre-render the movement around the AR graphics because you don't know where the camera's going to be. So obviously, the real-time engine is key. There are others out there, and I'll have a quick chat about them later on, but we've been using Notch and solely Notch for the last year to try and drive this forward. We all know why we use Notch, hence the reason we're all here. It's ease of use, it's speed, and how quickly you can produce and change content. So the last part of the puzzle is a playback server. We are D3 Studio, we own D3s, we have always used D3s for this process. Again, there are other servers out there that can do this, but it has to be said that since we sat down with D3 in Disguise, sorry. Since we sat down with Disguise in March last year, a demo down in CT, when they sat down and saw what we were doing and saw what we were trying to push, they've really taken on the mantle to develop the Disguise software to work really well in this environment. And I'll say, touch on a few more of those bits later on, but they've taken the mantle on to say, right, well, you need a real-time engine and you need a playback server, and the playback server has a big role in separating alpha channels, keys, fills, for driving outputs, for doing backup and redundancy. So optional extras. So what we've previously, with camera tracking, with a real-time engine, and with this, a media server, you can do augmented reality. You could do that NFL effect on a field very easily. What we've been trying to add in, again, coming from the live events world, where we've been tracking people with black tracks on stages for a long, long time now. We decided to try and take that into the augmented reality world and track objects, track people, well, we all know you can do black tracks, you can track whatever you want in a live environment. So there's just a little demo you can see the plate just I'm holding in my hand, the black track beacon's on the side of it, and then we're augmenting the shoe on top of it in the broadcast feed. Another effect we have is we had a wand moving around, which you saw in the first video, and there's another little video of it now. So this allows us to track an object. You can almost see Andrew in there. We're projecting content on top of the camera feed. We're also in this demo projecting content onto the LED screen behind, and we're tracking the camera at the same time. So you can see there how all four of those pieces of the puzzle are working together to produce a very nice, simple effect. So the next optional extra, got to give a lot of credit to Andy Hook from White Light for this, because he has been driving this and has put quite a lot of time and effort into driving this. But the concept of adding video surfaces in, this is where D3 is really driven forward, the concept of mixed reality, where you have physical video surfaces. We've been working in LED surfaces up until now, but you could as easily do this with projection. So Andy here is standing in the middle of an LED cube, and on broadcast, we are extending the set out from that. Now, again, something we'll touch on. But that's really where the mixed reality comes into. You've got LED, interaction, front plate, you've got content augmented in front, and you've got your 3D world being rendered behind. So I'm going to pause that and just go back quickly. So the big thing for making this mixed reality work, and this is something that this guy's worked very hard on, you have to, if you've got an LED screen on stage, you have your camera tracking, you maybe have some object tracking. You've essentially got three different worlds with different 0 points, different registration, different calibrations. So what we've been working on a lot is how do we bring those worlds together? The most obvious way is to take your LED screen, which is a pretty solid structure, it's generally not going to move, and align everything to that LED screen. So that then allows you, if you know exactly where the edge of an LED screen is, you can then extend your environment out from the side of it. So D3 have developed a very clever camera calibration system, which, if you were down at D3 last night, you would have seen, but the presents dots on the stage. The camera, broadcast camera, captures those dots. We know where the screens are in our virtual world. This then tells us where the screens are from the camera's position. We know where the camera is because the camera tracking is telling us that. And then we can offset the camera tracking and it brings everything in tight. I have a few more demos of that later on. We'll explain it. One of the big things that we've come across with AR, with XR, with all these requests coming in, and one of the things that's potentially sometimes overlooked in what we're trying to do today is the actual physical space that it's being put into. And I'm kind of showing this just as this is kind of just lessons learned of you get a phone call and someone says, hey, can we do tracking? This was American Idol, last season of American Idol. But yeah, we want to do tracking in this. And you go down to site and you go, well, where can we put dots? Like, well, you can't put them on the floor because the floor is an LED floor. You can't put them on the roof because that entire structure moves. Very, very difficult environment. So it is just be very conscious of when you're looking at AR and bits and pieces like that. The technical side is very straightforward. The physical side of things is actually mostly where we've come up against a lot of the barriers. I know there is a very well-known tracking company who are looking to help in this world so that we can do these larger spaces. And I think that's being announced later on in the year. This is the demo that's set up in LA currently, which is looking at very small LED stage and doing set extension. This is a little project in the pipeline of a very, very large AR. So it's as I said up there, AR will work anywhere, but it's not going to be very easy. And it's just that's one of the solving the technical problems. We're all very good at that side of it, but the logistical, technical side of things is quite tricky. One of the biggest things with AR is the fact that you have a lot of kit connected together. So in this photo here, you can pretty much see everything that we're running. So we've got D3 outputting. We've got Notch and laptop. Getting our bits of another Notch running on another machine. We've got Vision Mixer. We've got Blacktracks. We've got Blacktracks lighting. We've got the output feeds. We've got the LED screen just sitting in the corner here. So the workflow side of things is it's vital in our entire industry, full stop. If you're just producing a 10-second clip video, you still have to go through the whole process. When it comes to AR, the really defining, really questioning every part of how this is going to work at the very, very start is vital. Kind of goes back into that, what's the physical space going to be, how's it going to look? Making sure that everyone in that pipeline has got all the information. There's absolutely no point in a D3 guy building all his D3 show, building an entire 3D world, and the Notch guy has got a world that's offset by 50 meters. You bring that world into your D3 world, and all of a sudden, nothing lines up. And vice versa, there's no point the Notch guy building a world that's scaled completely incorrectly, goes into D3, is incorrect. Blacktracks then comes in and is in a completely different environment as well. So there are a lot of systems. The systems are all tried and tested. Bringing them together just requires a lot of time for it, essentially. And that's probably the biggest thing that we got quicker at as we went through the last 12 months of these various demos. But it's still a very involved process. If someone wants to edit a Notch block and someone also wants to tweak something on D3 and someone's trying to set something up on Blacktracks at the same time, it's hard to do that. There's only one D3 server that everything's running through. So you have to kind of very structured process. So just going to chat a bit about some of the lessons and the learnings that we had of it. So the CT demo was our very first roll of the dice. So me and David were out working at the Winter Olympics in Korea and building most of the ideas for this while we're out there, not even knowing if they're going to work because all we had was our laptops and Notch. The step at D3 and Notch and the whole workflow has taken from this demo is substantial. I think the biggest, the learnings from this are actually all in the software now, which is quite good. But it was things like how do you split alpha layers up? How do you get the information into D3? Collating the worlds together was probably the biggest one that we had on this. Like trying to align the video with the wand, you could see that everything was slightly off. That's where we came to the realization that you cannot do that manually. You can't rotate, zoom, scale two different worlds at the same. It just is. It's impossible to do because there's no fixed location. So the whole camera registration process that D3 have gone through now have completely eliminated that, and you can, with a very high level of confidence, know what's on your LED screen is going to be the same as what's on your augmented reality. Love this photo just because it happened to capture in time when Ash and Andy and everyone thought I was talking about something important. I'm pretty sure I was just pointing at the start menu. So IBC was a very, very interesting project. I think at one point we had Luke, Matt, Ash, Tom from D3, myself, Jamie from D3 support, all of us. Michael Afar was doing the content for all of us in Wildlife, about 2 weeks solid, trying to build this, push this forward. And I think the biggest learning from this IBC demo, one is that camera registration, when it works, is amazing, and we can build these beautiful, amazing sets. Two is Notch optimization is king. We ended up running this. We were running at 25 frames a second inside D3, which is running at 50 frames a second. So there's been, in the last few demos have been, we've been doing a lot of work with PRG in LA with Smasher, now that he's off the road. And that's been very interesting because we're starting now to get traction and get people to actually give us creative ideas that we can actually try and implement. So this is for an idea for kind of going through a crime scene, and you would have a character that we'd animate what happened to him, and then a real person could walk in to the scene to interact with it. So there's a couple of things I want to just touch on from this PRG demo. So the whole concept of front plate and back plate. I don't actually know who came up with those terms. I don't know if they're fully technically correct for the world that we're in, but it's something that if you get into the Disguise workflow or any of the other media server workflows and you're doing AR, you'll learn about a lot. So the two words backplate is, in the lingo, is used for anything that's rendered in the LED screen. So this is a 3D world. You can imagine Smasher walks on stage there. He is, if everything was rendered in front of him, you wouldn't see Smasher. So you kind of take where the LED is in the set, you take that out, you send that to the LED, and then the rest of it you surround with the augmented reality. Right, so it's just little clips. That's the same stage, the same set. We've done the camera registration, we've lined everything up, we've got our 3D environment, and all of a sudden you can build a full 3D world. Colors are matched, everything's matched. There's a small glitch with the lens distortion here, but this is all. Ash and Tom are currently in the middle of a huge drive to develop the code for this going forward. So this is a concept here. So at the moment, we've got our full set extension on. This gun at the moment is being rendered in the LED screen. And everything is in the back plate. The set extension is augmented, and you can kind of just see the lines, the black lines there of the LED floor. And then when Smasher picks this up, you can see now that we have the gun and the bullet from this crime scene are in the front plate. So they're all being rendered in front of him. When he puts the bullet in front of him in the world, in the 3D world, it all gets rendered in front of him. So that's the big thing between when we're talking about the two rendering to a front plate, everything in front of the human or the object that you want to make your look around. And the back plate then is everything that's rendered in the LED screen, which he's standing on. This is more of the Blade Runner demo we've done. So the software, especially with D3, is driving forward now. They're really driving forward. They're doing a big demo. I think it's being released in April. The full package is being released in April. And I think when you mix what D3 are doing with their alignment and camera registration with what Notch is doing with their ray tracing is probably not going to be put in too soon, but with what Notch is doing with the real-time environments that can be built, then it's really going to open up a lot of opportunities for everyone. So, quickly moving on, issues and limitations. It comes as a surprise to no one that getting lighting to work in AR is extremely difficult. So, this is a snip from a video that Stipe put together, which is a K-pop band. I think this is one of the best videos I've seen so far of a really good way to use AR. It's game characters. Game characters are easy and cheap to render. But you can see here, this is the same software that did the Weather Channel Augmented Flood. Very, very powerful system, but the lighting doesn't look correct there. How would you get that lighting correct? Do you do big environment maps? Do you capture it? Do you have lots of cameras? Do you have to build the entire lighting rig in your Notch block and then set is it cloudy? Is it bright on that day? So I think this is one of the biggest challenges to get that realism that we're looking for. I think you can probably work out that they've probably done the lighting to work when they're on stage, because at that stage there, pause doesn't work. At this stage here, when they're all kind of, the game characters are dancing and they're beside the real world characters, it works quite well. So you can probably tell they've probably decided to light that for these shots and not worry about it when it's in the sky. But that getting across this lighting, working out that lighting, one of the hardest challenges that we're going to come across until GPUs get better. The other big limitation, and the reason that we have this concept of front plate and back plate, is occlusion and masking. So this is just a little demo I found. So you see, you've got a scene, a living room. They've added in this bookcase, but the sofa has been covered. So you then add a 3D model of the sofa, and you can then render that as well, which brings it back into the room. So this whole, you can't, everything in AR is, if you put it on AR, camera captures me, and then there's a content laid on top of me. And unless in that content I am cut out, I'm going to get covered. And that's, and then obviously you have to do that in 3D, because as the camera moves, you have to go with it. So we've been looking at doing a few little demos to try and get around this. Very much experimental, work in progress at the moment. May recognize little Kinect, the classic Kinect plugged on to the, so it's set on top of the broadcast camera. Obviously everything gets tracked. So the broadcast camera is tracked, the Kinect's going to be tracked. And what we're looking to do with that is actually mask out the 3D model of the person. So this should look correct. You shouldn't actually be able to notice, but the idea being that the dollar bills don't go round. When they go round the back of him, they actually disappear out of shot. And then when they go round the front of them, they stay in shot. So you can't just mask things out with a 2D. You can't just mask things out with a 2D mask. It has to appear in front but disappear behind. So you're essentially, the Kinect, you're getting depth. You have to get depth. You have to have that 3D occlusion. And it's just another demo. This one was with the Kinect slightly better set up here. So it's slightly more. You can see just above my right shoulder there, it's slightly offset, and the dollar bills disappear a little bit sooner. But it's a nice sort of work in progress demo. When we can get full depth masks of everything that's going on a set, then all of a sudden we'll be able to do really interesting AR. But I think there's various options for this. Do you use the Noitum suits and track people's bodies, but then how do you deal with hair? Because obviously you can't track the hair. Do you have vision cameras that can do multiple points and get that whole depth masking? Yeah, that works well until you light an LED floor up, and then vision systems fall apart. So I think Microsoft are bringing out a new Kinect, which is meant to be higher resolution and meant to be much better at this. So hopefully we can move this forward. Obviously, the reason most people are here today, how to make Notch look more photorealistic. I think that the biggest thing with this is the amount of demos, the amount of meetings I've had where people have come in and said, "Oh, that looks fantastic, but you can make this photorealistic, right?" And you try and be a bit salesy, and "Oh yeah, no, we can definitely make it better." But we're not about to do Marvel Cinematic Universe style VFX for AR, and I think that's we've been pushing this hard. We've got a couple of jobs coming up now where we're actually doing full-scale jobs, not just demos anymore. But that process of selling, making sure the client is very aware of what they can get, and making sure that what we can do, we're speaking to the right clients to try and sell this work. Quick, just mention on why we're using Notch. There are other options out there. I haven't even included VizRT or some of the other ones there. I just checked a couple of logos up. These are more closely related to where Notch is. The other three bits of software, they work really well. People are building their own AR systems in Unity. Zero Density is built on Unreal. Zero Density is based on Unreal. But we've investigated it. Everyone in this room has probably investigated various options. But the one reason we keep going back to Notch is that Notch, the workflow just makes that whole process so much quicker. You can go on site and tweak things easily. You don't have to bring your army of developers and programmers with you. The D3 integration makes that whole workflow, that whole progress work well. So there are other options out there, and it's good that other people are doing interesting things, because we need more videos that we can show clients of what can be done. But Notch at the moment, it wins hands down on just sheer usability of in the workflow what we're trying to do. And this kind of touches what I've always said, like, how do we sell AR? How do we, as an industry, essentially, we all have to be singing the same ideas. We have to be putting across the same concepts of what can be done, where it works well, why it works. It works well in music and live events because, you know, that's the kind of style of graphics that they do. It's not going to be sold into, you know, you can't sell Star Wars a full live VFX Stormtrooper. I think that just making sure we're all conscious of this, like we've been very conscious of it as well. Like let's approach and let's chase the jobs that we know we can do. Just a few points, just like on the whole Notch setup. The Notch community is amazing. I think the fact is a lot of people from the touch world, the VJ world, have come into to Notch. The whole sharing concept, you know, sharing what people. Not sharing our learnings. We don't want to share our inner thoughts of, you know, the next thing we're trying to invent, but people's ability to share what they have done and openness to share what they've done previously when they've got the solution. They're now on to something else. I think it's a fantastic, and I don't think Notch, this event wouldn't be happening if it wasn't obviously for us, and I think the community side of it and the sharing side of it. And obviously, I can't talk about AR without mentioning our friend Berto over in San Francisco. I think between the two of us, we probably chat most days about various problems. I was overseeing those guys in December. And again, you know, he shares. We all have all seen his, if you follow him on Instagram or on Facebook, like he shares a lot of work and he's really driving this forward. And we've been very open with each other. What he's learned, he's been sharing with me. What I've learned, I've been sharing with him to try and drive this forward so we can actually sell these shows. And when we do a show, we learn from each other and pass that information back to make it easier. The future, it's blank, it's whatever we want to make it. And it's hope, you know, we're there obviously to supply the knowledge and consultancy as a business, and we're here as other Notch users to help the community to drive this forward. It's pretty exciting. We're doing some cool stuff. We've got some cool shows coming up in the next few months. And yeah, it's a completely different. We opened the D3 show. We're building a disguise show at the moment, and there's no screens. There's nothing in the GUI. The GUI isn't required. And some of the guys at D3 are a bit puzzled as to where this is going. So all of a sudden, we've just got a completely new avenue of work and jobs that we can do moving forward. And yeah, 12:45 on the dot. Anyone get any questions?
Any questions for Scott?
Oh, I've told you everything.
I don't believe that.
Well, we can talk tech outside. But if there's any more, no generic questions, then yeah, I'll let you all go and have your lunch. Thank you very much.